As you may have heard me proclaim before in my Byzantine library of past videos, when it comes to Sonic the Hedgehog, the characters have always been one of the most important aspects of the series. Whether you got into Sonic at the very beginning, or picked the series up somewhere along the way, every Sonic fan has that character, that story that hooked them on the series and ensured it would remain important to them forever. So when the Sonic movies came along, it was always going to be crucial that they get these beloved characters right. And after a near false start, because let's face it, no amount of good characterization could have made this thing lovable, the movie's take on the characters, for the most part, has been hugely successful. No, not everything was perfect, but as far as the main pillars that make up these characters, their adaptations were believable, and most importantly, understandable. For the third movie, I've already covered the amazing Shadow and Maria, but what about Team Sonic? Well, after the second movie, we were left with the impression that Sonic, while still having a lot of maturing to do, was at least working towards becoming the full-fledged hero we all know from the games. Knuckles was a stoic, laser-focused badass who values honor above all else, accurately portraying his naive nature while never straying into dumb territory, striking that all-important balance between his serious and funny sides. And Tails was a shy, kind-hearted genius who idolizes Sonic. Sure, he didn't get as much screen time as most of us would have wanted, but he still had a huge impact on the story and was easily more important than he was during his actual game debut. All in all, the second movie did an awesome job at portraying these characters. But how did they fare in the third installment? Will they shine as brightly as they did before? Or will they remain in Shadow's shadow?
Oh, brother, this guy stinks!
When it comes to portraying Sonic outside of the games, history teaches us that this has never been a straightforward thing. Even from the earliest examples, his character was usually similar to the games, but also vastly different. And right up to the present day, that hasn't changed. In my opinion, Sonic Prime presented a deeply flawed rendition of our Blue Blur. He was foolish, unfocused, needy, and massively inconsistent with his established character in the games. And I think some of the reasons for that are the same reasons some people don't enjoy Movie Sonic. It's very difficult to get Sonic's character right when it's him being used to experience a growth arc. Sonic is a pre-assembled and self-assured hero right off the bat in the games, and it's usually those around him that do the growing, often with his help. Whereas Movie Sonic was adapted into a fresh version of the character, a younger, inexperienced version who is facing obstacles he faced in the games as a full-fledged hero, and that can sometimes make his movie personality a bit jarring by comparison. But by the end of the second movie, Sonic was definitely starting to come into his own as that confident hero with a knack for bringing people together. And I think it's that aspect of his character that shined brightest. From befriending Tails and Knuckles to giving up the intoxicating power of the Chaos Emeralds, acknowledging he still had some growing up to do. We were still a ways off, but Sonic was at least on track to become the hero we all know and love. Continuing the brotherly antics, we closed out the second movie with Sonic Movie 3 opens with a friendly race between our trio. A race that nearly fooled me into thinking we were about to play the Rooftop Run soundtrack over it, but nope. I should really know better at this stage than to expect Sonic tracks in a Sonic movie, huh? Turns out though, the race was just a ruse to throw Sonic off the scent of a surprise party celebrating the anniversary of his arrival on Earth, during which Sonic and Tom have a heart-to-heart that pretty much sets up the entire premise for this movie. As they stumble across the cave that Sonic lived alone in, a place that probably represents the lowest point in his life, Tom asks about the mural of him and Longclaw. Sonic says that he drew that his first night on Earth, remarking how much he misses her. Right from the start, this movie is making it clear that we are comparing and contrasting Sonic and Shadow, witnessing their lived experiences and observing the vastly different outcomes. When Sonic asks Tom if he thinks Longclaw will be proud of him, Tom assures him she would, because he never let the pain of losing her change who he is. Foreshadowing. He explains to Sonic that life comes down to the choices we make, saying that knowing Sonic, he'll probably make some bad ones, but that when it comes to what's important, he'll listen to his heart and make the right ones when it matters most. Sonic says he doesn't know what he'd do without Tom, saying he'd probably be a totally different hedgehog. It's moments like this where we see that Sonic isn't just an unrelenting optimism machine that really affords these movies the opportunity to dive deep with their adaptations of the character. In this universe, Sonic is carrying a lot more baggage than we're used to, which puts the character's usual flawless hero persona on much shakier ground than usual. Despite all that has happened to him, Sonic has done a pretty good job so far at holding everything together. But, at least as far as the movie wants us to think, that could all turn on a dime. And in a story centering around revenge, that's a pretty interesting possibility. The family festivities are brought to an abrupt end though when their camp trip is crashed by Gun. And while the helicopter is landing and everyone is wondering what they might have done to earn this visit, Sonic shows that from time to time he can actually channel Game Sonic perfectly.
What did you do?
I don't know, I do a lot of stuff.
See, I usually know Movie Sonic has nailed it when I can hear Game Sonic saying it in either Ryan Drummond or Jason Griffith's voice, and that line nailed the vibe for me. Turns out, Gun actually wants their help. With some vague situation unfolding in Tokyo, Commander Walters has requested the aid of Team Sonic. Cue the trio accepting with zero questions and a nod to the helicopter jump scene from Sonic Adventure 2, complete with cheesy but perfect dialogue. And their landing pose gave me similar Sonic Heroes chills to the second movie. But their moment is quickly interrupted by Shadow. Between some calm questions like,
Who are you? Why do you look like me?
Sonic seems to be trying the good cop routine. He tries to talk Shadow down, but Shadow is having none of it. And after humbling our trio pretty badly, Shadow warns Sonic not to follow. But Sonic's all like,
I'm gonna.
The chase sequence set piece itself? Absolutely fine. But Sonic's dialogue throughout left a lot to be desired. In a scene that could have had a lot of cocky verbal jousting between the two, Sonic ends up coming off as that little brother who tries to follow his big brother everywhere and just won't go away.
The more you talk, the harder I want to hit you.
And that's essentially what happens. Humbled once again, Sonic finds himself stuck to a railing with his own handcuffs while Shadow escapes. Admitting himself that he still has some work to do on this whole teamwork thing after being scolded by Tails, Sonic finally realizes that they went into this whole thing blind, and that what they really need is some answers from Gun. Tell me Tails picked the meeting place without telling me Tails picked the meeting place. Walters gives the trio the details of Shadow's past. Their Chow dinner theater is cut short though when what appears to be Eggman robots shoot up the place, and they're all saved by a mysterious biker.
Konnichiwa?
Leaving whether Walters is alive or dead up in the air, he entrusts one of two Doomsday keys to Sonic, and the trio pursue their rescuer to discover Eggman is alive, and that he had nothing to do with the attack or releasing Shadow, although he is very interested to learn who is using his technology. So, with a million reasons why it's probably not a good idea, they team up with Eggman and Stone. The justification being that the person who is using Eggman's drones is probably the same person who released Shadow. Even through the endless barrage of childish sniping,
Dorcupine? Really clever.
as he explores the abandoned lab, Sonic gets a chance to display some understanding for Shadow. Finding the old living space he once shared with Maria, Sonic learns he had a family, the importance of which is all too relatable for him. And seeing the environment he grew up in, Sonic begins to see why Shadow is so angry. It's good to see that even underneath all the pop culture references and bluster, that Sonic is still insightful enough to be able to see things from the perspective of others. It's that aspect of his character that allows him to make friends so easily, often even turning foes into allies in the process. It's this side of his character that the movies portray really well, and I was glad to see that continue to be the case in this one. Despite all that insightfulness though, Team Sonic still ends up getting captured by Shadow, who immediately takes the weapon key they were kind enough to bring with them. And with Gerald and Eggman now working together, Gerald's plot to steal the Eclipse cannon is revealed. With his newfound understanding of Shadow's situation, Sonic attempts to get through to him, asking him not to let the pain of losing Maria change who he is. But Shadow won't hear a word of it, and narrowly escaping the miniature black hole he leaves them, they now have to infiltrate Gun HQ and steal the other weapon key before the Robotniks do. With the help of the empty nest syndrome Wachowskis, of course. With Gun's security being so tight, Maddie suggests that Sonic use the Master Emerald to go super and cakewalk it. But Sonic says that the Master Emerald is too powerful to ever use again, and that the three have hidden it away in a place that only Knuckles knows, with Knuckles adding that anyone who tries to take the Master Emerald will become a sworn enemy. Look at his hat. And Sonic ends the conversation by talking about making the right choice. True to form, Sonic is impatient to get started, and Knuckles isn't much better. So Tails gets to play the role of exhausted parent trying to manage their unruly toddlers.
Try punching it.
Do not try punching it.
Learning the Robotniks nearly have the second key, Sonic unilaterally decides to throw all caution to the wind, nearly incinerating himself by trying to breach Gun's shield before it's fully disabled, forcing Tails to intervene and save his ass. There was something so very Sonic Prime about this, and it just annoyed me. Plus, he dissed Ringo Starr by referring to him as the other Beatle, and as a huge Thomas the Tank Engine fan, that just won't stand.
Shut up! It's not funny.
But turns out Director Rockwell was playing chess while these idiots were playing checkers, and they fall nicely into her gravity traps. With Rockwell about to leave with the key, Tom cleverly uses Tails' device to pose as Walter's and has her handed over to him. But unfortunately for Tom, he then runs into Shadow, who holds a grudge against Walters. Not knowing it isn't the real deal, Shadow doesn't hesitate and severely injures Tom, leaving whether or not he will even survive up in the air and pushing Sonic into the same narrative position as him. Anger driving him even further away from the Sonic we all know, he lashes out at Tails for simply saying it will be okay. Knuckles tells him that Tails is only trying to comfort him, but Sonic doesn't want comfort. All he wants is to stop the Robotniks and Shadow at any cost. The movie's theme of pain and vengeance is now testing the bond of these three brothers. And despite Knuckles telling him the Emerald should never be used for vengeance, and Tails reminding him of his own words to Tom that the Master Emerald wasn't the right choice, Sonic refuses to hear reason, willing to use violence to get what he wants if necessary. Knuckles tells him that part of their oath is to trust each other, and that he will abide by that oath even if Sonic has chosen not to, telling him the Emerald is guarded by a fearsome warrior, who turns out to be Wade and kinda undercuts the whole moment, but we'll quickly move on from that. In his super form, Sonic can finally make Shadow answer for what he did. Shadow scoffs at Sonic trying to lecture him, saying that now he knows the pain he's felt for 50 years. And faced with the same reality, Sonic made the same choice he did. As the devil on Sonic's shoulder, Shadow goads him into giving in to his anger, and Sonic is too blind with rage to see it. In a movie about choices, it gives Shadow huge importance to be able to challenge Sonic not only physically, but also morally. And morality is something we've always kind of taken for granted with Sonic. Don't get me wrong, Sonic and Shadow's fight scene is awesome. The two of them beating the cosmic crap out of each other in their super forms with the Live and Learn guitar riff playing over it. It only took 3 movies for them to embrace the game music. But seeing Sonic have to deal with the more devious and manipulative side of Shadow that we know from Sonic Adventure 2?
Where are your friends? They tried to stop you, didn't they? But you came anyway. Your anger was too much. What kind of hero abandons his friends to pursue revenge? Abandons his family? And here I thought you cared for them.
That was poetry. Why just hurt Sonic physically when you can point out all his bad decisions? Decisions that remove him further from the hero he so desperately wants to be, all the while isolating him from his friends. The friends that actually gave him the strength to stay true to himself despite his pain. As a way of validating his own lack of morals, Shadow drags Sonic down to his level, encouraging him to do the same. As I said in Shadow's video, revenge is ugly and lonely, but made much more bearable when you see someone else sink to it as well. And his plan nearly works. Mentioning Tom is enough to push Sonic over the edge, and with one enraged punch he launches Shadow out of his super form and onto the moon. He has his fist cocked, his revenge in sight, all while Shadow is shouting at him to finish it. He's right there. But seeing Shadow pressing his finger to his own chest, ready to die, Sonic finally proves Shadow wrong. They're not alike because he can't do it. Remembering Tom's words about not letting his pain change him, Sonic knows this isn't who he is, and Shadow is completely stunned by Sonic sparing him. Confused, he tells Sonic he won, to take his revenge, but Sonic verbally disarms him completely, saying that there are no winners with revenge. Sonic says that he felt just like Shadow after losing Longclaw, but that even though the pain never really went away, he learned that the love they felt for each other was stronger than anything, telling Shadow that's what he should hold on to, that Maria may be gone, but their love for each other is eternal, igniting in Shadow Maria's lesson from long ago.
The light shines, even though the star is gone.
Yeah, it does.
With the red haze of revenge no longer clouding his mind, and with Sonic's shining example that there's a better choice, Shadow now sees the horrible mistake he's made. But just like with Knuckles in the second movie, Sonic extends his hand in friendship, offering Shadow a chance to make the right choice. Once again showing that regardless of anything else, the movies at least always get that side of Sonic right. His ability to bring people together and help them to become their best selves. The pair execute Sonic's plan to just kind of face smash the world-destroying laser in their super forms and get the planet out of any immediate danger. But with no energy left and the cannon still about to explode and destroy Earth anyway, it's up to Tails and Knuckles to save him while Shadow and Eggman seemingly sacrifice their lives to save the planet. And with everything over, humbled by the lessons he's learned, the living and learning, and with renewed appreciation for his brothers, Sonic apologizes to Tails and Knuckles. And, like all good brothers, they forgive him. And with Tom now recovering from his injuries, Team Sonic have probably the happiest ending of anyone in this movie. In a story about revenge, it was important that Sonic be a big part of the messaging behind it. And I think having his unique movie universe circumstances juxtaposed against Shadow was a pretty cool way of doing that. As Tails says in the beginning though, if it wasn't for Sonic, none of them would be here right now. And it's that ability Sonic has of bringing people together that I think the movies shine a light on really well. Elevating those around him and helping them become their best selves is one of the most important aspects of his character, and that's something these movies have consistently shown him doing, which I think can only be seen as a success, even if it is through an endless sea of pop culture references. I was immensely happy with Tails in the second movie. Like, I know there was some criticism around how little screen time or development he got, but honestly, I felt he was far more important in every conceivable way in that movie than he was during his actual game debut. And in the movie, he shared his debut with another huge personality. That's pretty good going for our little fox boy in a single movie runtime. His characterization was on point, and to me seemed accurate to all his established character traits. A shy, helpful, kind-hearted genius who idolizes Sonic? Check, check, and double check. Going from a scared little kid to a daredevil stunt pilot, he fearlessly charges into battle with his arsenal of gadgets, winning the respect of his mentor and forming a brotherhood that will last forever. In Sonic Movie 3, Tails continues to show that confidence, ready to jump straight into action to back up his bros in a heartbeat. But, smart boy that he is, always goes prepared. Even after seeing what Shadow did to Knuckles, Tails shows no fear. And while that ultimately doesn't change much in the end, it's still nice to see him have that confidence, fully believing in his team and himself. As the resident voice of reason in the group, Tails is constantly warning Sonic about his very obvious mistakes. But since Sonic in this movie is kinda channeling Prime Sonic for a little bit, Tails' advice is rarely taken, even though he always ends up being right. He also knows that the only gardening ever worth doing is chow gardening, picking the ultimate meetup spot for their Q&A with Gun. I can't put into words how happy it makes me just to see how much Tails enjoyed this place despite Sonic's indifference and Knuckles' Fear? It reminds us that despite his genius and bravery, Tails is still just a kid. And it was nice to get some wholesome moments like this for him in what is otherwise an extremely fast-paced story. When the trio chase the mysterious biker and discover Eggman is alive, I'm sorry, Tails' facial expression here just kills me.
And he's never looked worse.
Didn't even need to say it, dude. Your face already did. It's Tails who suggests working with Eggman to find the person who released Shadow. Kind of felt like this would have been something Tails was capable of discovering on his own, but I get that the plot required it, building a bridge and getting over it. But it's during the abandoned gun base segment, when the group splits up to look around, that we hear one of the most accurate things about Tails.
I'm just gonna come right out and say this. You're adorable.
Thanks.
See? Stone gets it. But more importantly, albeit at the expense of Stone's view on his relationship with Robotnik, we learn just how important Tails' friendship with Sonic and Knuckles is to him. He sees himself as an equal on the team, explaining that they each have their role and how it helps that they're also best friends. Again, it's nice to see Tails be confident in himself. It's clearly his belief in himself and his friends that drives him forward. Somewhat in jarring contrast to the state of his character in the games recently. But at least even in that universe now, those failings are something Tails is using to grow. After escaping Shadow's death marble, it's up to Tails to devise the team's plan to infiltrate Gun HQ and retrieve the second key, for which the brunt of the work seems to be managing the impatience of Sonic and Knuckles. But after everything goes wrong and Tom gets hurt, Tails' whole belief system is tested when Sonic, someone who he sees as a flawless hero, comes off the rails. Tails believes in the team more than anyone, so seeing it so badly strained by tragedy really impacts him. Like an innocent child caught in the middle of two arguing parents, Tails' voice falls on deaf ears. Nobody will listen to him. You only have to look at his face to see this is a very sobering moment for him. I know people hoped for a larger arc for Tails in this movie, with some even speculating that it might be him that gets through to Shadow in the end in place of Amy from the games, but I think this movie made it very clear throughout that it would be Sonic that reached him. Despite Tails' illusions of the perfect team being shattered though, he still never gives up on his friends, and with the help of Knuckles and Eggman, puts in motion the events that ultimately lead to the planet being saved, and without a moment's thought for his own safety, jumps into space to save Sonic. It's also Tails who points out the sacrifice Eggman and Shadow made to save the world, showing that despite his young age, he doesn't let fickle titles like enemy cloud his perception of things. He really is a smart kid in this movie, and his little face when Sonic apologizes to him and Knuckles made my day. His belief system and his faith in his team completely validated. Tails will, or would I should say, there's no guarantees, definitely benefit from his own show, not you, or movie. I think outside of a standalone adventure centering around him, the amount of growth he can experience is always going to be somewhat limited by him sharing the numbered movies with new characters, or just the many characters he's already surrounded by. The way I see it, the risk is always that movie Tails will suffer the same fate as his meta-era counterpart in the games, just becoming the king of exposition, the friendly face that's just there to explain the plot and any complicated aspects of it, which is obviously bad. Just a waste of a character that has so much potential. There's no concrete signs of that happening or anything, not yet anyway, but at the same time, it's always a possibility. There are many positives for Tails in this movie, but as far as where his character is ultimately going, we'll just have to wait and see. As I said in my analysis of Knuckles in the second movie, my ideal depiction of Knuckles? A stoic, laser-focused guardian with a strong sense of honor and socially naive to his own detriment. Naive, yes. Dumb, no. As a badass warrior trained in all forms of combat, left alone to find the Master Emerald as the sole survivor of his kind, Movie Knuckles checked all the series lore boxes nicely. A socially inexperienced warrior who wears his heart on his sleeve, right beside his fist. In Sonic 2, Knuckles struck a perfect balance between comedy, seriousness, and wholesomeness, serving as probably the highlight of that whole movie for me. Knuckles starts out pretty much how you might expect in this movie.
I have dishonored my marshmallow.
Effortlessly funny and uniquely charming, it only takes a monotone statement of a simple fact using his own vocabulary to make me smile. As someone who sees himself as co-leader of the team and every bit as important as Sonic, Knuckles never misses an opportunity to bust Sonic's chops or take him down a peg or two whenever his ego starts to run away with itself, justifiably questioning who picked the Team Sonic name. He didn't sign up for that.
Team Knuckles!
Did you know? Knuckles is 1,000,000% muscle. Oh, you've heard that before?
Yes, good. You've been listening.
I think everyone knew a kid like Knuckles when we were younger, and it's that childlike social ineptitude that somehow just adds to his charm. Like, there was this kid at my school who swore blind that his uncle was Stone Cold Steve Austin from WWF. Didn't matter that we lived in Ireland. Didn't matter he had no relations anybody knew who shared the surname. Didn't matter that every time we would ask to meet him during his apparent visits, that Steve's visits somehow ended while we're all in school. He never missed an opportunity to tell you that Stone Cold was his uncle. But Knuckles is somehow big-headed while not actually being big-headed, because he actually is that much of a badass. He actually is Stone Cold's nephew. In fact, Stone Cold is the one often caught lying that Knuckles is his f***ing uncle. I like that Knuckles and Sonic have that brotherly banter that I enjoy from the games.
Not bad. Things would have been over faster if I'd been Super Knuckles. You did all right.
With Knuckles constantly remarking that Shadow is far more impressive than Sonic without actually mentioning him by name. Knuckles obviously respects the hell out of Sonic, but his buttons are just too easy to push, and Knuckles clearly gets a kick out of how much it consistently bothers him every time. Knuckles is pretty badly humbled by Shadow, probably a bit more than I would have liked as well. I would have probably choreographed this fight a little differently, maybe showing a bit of back and forward with Knuckles thinking he has the advantage only for Shadow to turn it around. But hey, this movie was already under tremendous runtime pressure and they wanted to show off Shadow's power, so it is what it is. I also love the nod to Knuckles' relationship with ghosts. And before you judge him too harshly, Knuckles has good reason to be afraid of ghosts. And Casper was a scary-ass movie.
Cat. Can I keep you?
Ugh. There was always a risk going forward though that Knuckles would become mostly comic relief, and at times this movie did have me slightly concerned with just how often it leans on him in that capacity. The constant jokes, the impatience, the punching first and asking questions when it's too late, that all was a genuine concern for me. But once Sonic goes off the rails and loses his composure, that's when Knuckles really comes into his own for me. Only he knew where the Master Emerald was, leaning nicely into his Guardian role. I'm willfully ignoring the fact that he left it with Wade. It's like they're contractually obligated to have him appear in every movie or some shit. But it's Knuckles who keeps his emotions in check and avoids a full team meltdown when things get tense, averting a situation where things are done that can't be undone. He says as their oath dictates, he trusts Sonic, even if he is not willing to do the same. He spells out in no uncertain terms that using the emerald for vengeance is a mistake, and that Sonic's judgment is clouded by anger, and he's in no condition to be making decisions. And he's right. Knuckles is the older, smarter big brother, and when all indications and character traits would point to him being the one to lose control and get swallowed up in anger, he takes a step back and continues to help his friends any way he can. Biding his time, he helps stop the laser from hitting Earth, and rocking those flames of disaster plucks Sonic and Tails from their fatal fall and brings them safely to the ground. And when all is said and done and Sonic says his sorries, Knuckles offers him a Team Sonic fist bump. He knew Sonic needed his understanding and compassion. Even though he had every right to, he had no intention of holding his failures over him.
I am having the love.
And I don't think there's any better quote than that to explain how Knuckles sees his family. He would fight and die for them, and I think this honorable warrior side still shines through in this movie, even if he didn't get to do as much as we all would have liked. I think going in, I had already made peace with the fact that in a story introducing Shadow the Hedgehog, there was just no way any of Team Sonic, besides Sonic himself, was going to get a lot of time for growth in this movie. Shadow dominated in the narrative department, and as a huge fan of him as well, I even think he could have gotten more. I think for any substantial development beyond the bare essentials, these guys need their own dedicated movies and shows. Not that one. Honestly, I think that's the only way they'll ever get the level of character development that people want. That's not to say that having them remain static in some movies is a bad thing. There was a lot I enjoyed about Team Sonic in this movie, and it was a hell of an ask to squeeze much more in for them when the movie was also covering Shadow and Maria. I don't envy anyone trying to balance all that in under 2 hours. All in all, Sonic is growing, and as long as we don't see him making the same mistakes and the character continues to aspire to becoming his game counterpart someday, I'm relatively happy. Tails and Knuckles were also great, albeit limited by their shorter screen time. But as long as the movies don't fall into the same traps as the games did in the past, and reduce them to exposition and comedy roles, then I think we should be okay. And I think the next movie will be very telling in that regard. So I'm waiting eagerly to see how the extended cast will be handled in the 4th installment. I hope you guys enjoyed the video. If you did, don't forget to drop a like and make sure to subscribe to the channel if you haven't already. I have plenty more Sonic content in the works, so make sure that bell icon is checked to be notified when I upload. If you guys want to support the channel, you can now become a member and get a bunch of cool icons and perks while helping me to keep doing what I'm doing. But now, I'd love to hear what you guys think. Did you enjoy Team Sonic in the 3rd movie? What did you think of how it used Tails and Knuckles? And how would you like to see Sonic grow going forward? Let me know your thoughts in the comments. But for now, a big thank you for watching. And as always guys, take care.